They say the truth will set you free, but is that always true? Coming up next on Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. Raven Cafe from Port Huron, Michigan. That's a pretty cool cup. My friend Phil gave this to me. Phil is with Casting Crowns, and he travels a lot, and he knows I like ravens, and I have a lot of raven stories. And so he bought this for me, and it's his birthday today. Shout out, Phil. Happy birthday. Love you. So let's dig right in. You know, there are some days coffee tastes better than others. Maybe it's the cup. It could be. So here's the question today, dear Pastor Bob. Is it always a good idea to speak the truth to people? Truth seems to divide instead of unify all the time. How do you know when to speak up and when to be quiet? This is a really good question, because there's a lot of truth to this question about truth. Just saying. So truth is not always easy. You know, when you see someone that looks really nice and you say you look really nice and it's the truth, that's the best feeling. When you tell somebody that you love them, and when they hear your truth about your love for them and they love you too, that's the best truth you can get. But what about telling a child that there is no Santa Claus on Christmas Eve? or taking your wife to a fancy church banquet, and as you're walking in you say, you know, you really look ugly in that new dress. Or telling a person that you're counseling everything that's wrong with them in the first counseling session. You see where I'm going with this. There's a lot of times when full disclosure is not the best idea right then. How do you do truth? And a lot of it has to do with timing and how the other person will perceive it, how they'll receive it, and their own truth sometimes has a problem. Truth isn't always easy. And sometimes it's really like navigating a minefield. You kind of don't know where to go with it. You know, there's that movie, and I've titled this after the movie, You Can't Handle the Truth. And, you know, sometimes people can't. So what if telling somebody truth sparks something in them, pushes a button in them? What if there's something they're working on, they're dealing with, they have baggage with, they are they're trying to ignore, and even people that have post-traumatic syndrome, you know, that have been in a war or something, and you bring up something about that, or a sound or whatever, and it triggers something, and it may be truth and it may be valid, but is it the best idea? And many times, truth, telling someone truth, is not a good idea at the moment because of things they're going through. It can create trauma that's not necessarily the best idea. So it's always a good idea to be truthful, always. Let me just say that. I think the timing sometimes is difficult. And sometimes when you tell the truth, you open up a minefield that you have to kind of maneuver, and you realize that for the other person to receive the truth, sometimes they have to get through a few things too, and sometimes you do as well. But there are a lot of people that don't want to see the truth, and they'll do whatever they can not to see it. And, you know, we look around and we see all kinds of unrest in the world. And wherever you stand politically, you know that the media manipulates the truth. In fact, these days, at least here in the United States, it's mostly lies. And it's amazing to me what they get away with and how they just make up stories and publish them on both sides of the fence. And it's horrible. And there are people that have been demonized, I don't know what that means, demonized to the point where people hate them. But not everything that's been said about them is true. So what do you do with that? Well, this is nothing new, by the way. Let's go to John chapter 18, if you have your Bibles. John chapter 18, starting with verse 37. And this is when the Jews couldn't put a man to death, so they took Jesus to Pontius Pilate. And they said, we'd like you to put him to death for us. And so Pontius Pilate's having this conversation with people, and then he turns to Jesus, and he says to him, then you're a king. And that's one of the things that people said. He says he's a king. He's not a king. So then you're a king. And Jesus answered, you say correctly that I am a king. This is why I was born. And for this I have come into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth, who's a friend of the truth and belongs to the truth, hears and listens carefully to my voice. Well, this was one of the things Pontius Pilate was a little upset about. Because Jesus is actually saying, yes, you say that correctly, that I am a king. And if you knew the truth and you were a follower of the truth, then you would know that that is the truth. All of these people that have been yelling, crucify him, do not know the truth because they're not a follower of the truth. A lot of people were just around to watch him do fancy tricks, they thought. They followed him because he was interesting, and now they were done with him. They weren't followers of the truth necessarily. And a lot of those followers of the truth were hiding. So Pontius Pilate said, so you're a king? Jesus said, yeah, I am. And if you were a follower of the truth, you would know that. This is why I was born, and for this I have come into the world to testify to the truth, not just one of many truths, but the truth. Everyone who is of the truth, who is a friend of the truth and belongs to the truth, who is a friend of the truth and who belongs of the truth and is of the truth, hears and listens carefully to my voice. Why? Because they know my voice. So was Pilate one of those? Well, he was later, by the way. Pilate at this point said to him scornfully, what is truth? You know, in Jesus Christ Superstar, they extend that line, and I'm not saying that everything in Jesus Christ Superstar is good, but he says, so what is truth? Is truth a changing law? We all have truth. Is mine the same as yours? So Pilate says scornfully, what is truth? And when he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, I find no guilt in him, no crime, no cause for accusation. But you have a custom that I release someone to you on the Passover. So shall I release for you the King of the Jews? And then they all shouted back again, not this man, but Barabbas. Barabbas was a robber. He was a real criminal. And they said, no, release the criminal. You know, I watch, and I'm just going to get slightly political for a second, and I don't ever do that. I don't tell you what side I'm leaning towards, and I'm still not going to. But I watch as people are demonized on both sides of the fence. And I've watched people get in their mind something, you know. And our president has been like no other president in history, has been the focus of a barrage of accusations and untruths and whatever. He's not a perfect man. Some of the accusations are true, all of that, but but there's so many that aren't. And and then we have people on every side of the fence. Some are guilty of huge crimes, not anything near what they're accusing our president of. And yet they say, well, let's have these other guys that are guilty, that are proven guilty, that have been guilty for years. And everybody really knows, but they hate one person so much that they're willing to, look at somebody else. Exactly what's happening here. Now, Jesus says he's king of the Jews. Let's release this criminal instead. Yeah. So what is truth? Well, the Bible is truth, and the Bible, the nuts and bolts of the Bible are two things: love, love, love. Jesus said it's the greatest commandment. It's what all the laws of the prophets and everything are based on: agape love. And truth. Jesus is the epitome, the embodiment of truth. That's where it comes from. And so when we see that, we realize that this is the truth. This is who he is. This is what he came to do, like he said. I've been forgiven. I've been forgiven because of what he has done on the cross for me. And folks, to go back to this question, and it's really a great question, is it always a good idea to speak the truth to people? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, truth is always a great idea. No, it's not always the perfect time. There are many times, and I'll close with this, but there are many times when I am counseling with someone and I see a whole bunch of things that I need to tell them. But I also see that they're not ready to hear the majority of it. So I choose a starting place, and I choose a place that I'm going to end, and I give them a snippet. And the next time I give another snippet, and we begin to go through the truth. Can they handle it all at the very first time? No. And every relationship is like this. There is a time when I am forthright with things, and there's a time when I wait, because I realize they're dealing with their own stuff. And if I tell them this truth, it's going to trigger so many other things, or they're not going to be able to handle it, or it's going to wipe them out. And so why not give it in snippets? And we sometimes feel that if we're going to tell people the truth, we got to give it all at one time. We got to just blast them with everything we have. And then we say, but I'm justified because it's the truth and they needed to know. Really? Sometimes the very kindest thing you can do to someone is to tell them the truth along the way as they're able to handle it, and help them maneuver the minefields along the way. So knowing when to speak up and knowing when to be quiet and wait is wisdom. All right. Well, don't forget, folks, that you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.